February 11th, 1944. Bletchley Park, Buckinghamshire. Snow sits in the hedges like chalk. In Hut 8, the air smells of hot wiring and wet wool, as night shift hands off today. A Y service set from the western approaches crackles through a headset, the operator reading out 5-letter groups in a steady voice while a teleprinter clatters. You hear it as she hears it. Clean fist, disciplined spacing, naval net procedure, origin somewhere west of the Bay of Biscay. Another U-boat contact report flows in, and something about the timing makes a duty officer lift his head. The British side is pure procedure: intercept, log, punch, route. Y stations at Scarborough and Cheadle funnel traffic through to Bletchley Park. Naval keys go to Hut 8. Army and Luftwaffe go to Hut 6. Anything that looks like a rerun of last night's pattern lands on a senior cryptanalyst's desk with a pencil note. Check against shark window. The pencil is dull. The habit is sharp. Since 1943, after the U-boat service introduced the 4-rotor Enigma for ocean traffic, shark has been the worst kind of enemy. Silent, then suddenly talkative when key books are captured or cribs align and the bombs bite. A runner crosses the path to the Bombay outstation. Racks of electromechanical bombs hum and hammer through hypothesized rotor orders and plugboard wiring. Each drum is a bet placed against the enemy's certainty. The German premise is simple: rotating rotors, long periods, a plugboard that explodes the key space. They believe it cannot be read in time. They believe that even if someone somewhere got lucky once, by the time a key is found and used, the tactical moment will be gone. They believe this because their own cipher office tests agree. And yet convoys reroute at odd hours. Aircraft appear out of weather with uncanny aim. A U-boat shadows a convoy lane for 2 nights, and then runs into an escort group that should not be there. You watch the procedure harden into rhythm. A likely crib from routine weather traffic is shaped against the 5-letter groups. A menu is written. The bomb is set. Metal fingers spin. When the machine halts, engineers lean in and pull a slip, one candidate among thousands. Back to Hut 8. Try the setting against the intercept. Typex clacks. A German naval report opens into plain meaning. A contact datum, a fuel state, a rendezvous coordinate, with a tender close to the French Atlantic coast. Time 1430 Z. The coordinate sits like a pin on a chart you have already seen, and it points to a place an Allied hunter-killer group can reach by nightfall. Across the channel, the German side follows its script. Kriegsmarine signals discipline is strict. Enigma net procedures are enforced. Call signs rotate by table. Short signal books compress reports to bare numbers. Security bulletins repeat the same sermon. No predictable phrasing, no reused indicators, no mention of forbidden words in clear. In Paris, Admiral Karl Dönitz's staff watch the convoy plots on a wall map. The expectation is rational. An enemy can find a convoy by air sighting, HF, DF bearing lines, chance, or luck. But he cannot know rendezvous points that only exist inside Enigma traffic. If he knows them, then either a traitor lives in the room, or the machine is not the shield they think it is. The operator in the Y station reads another burst. A second U-boat alters course by a few degrees. The bearing lines, plotted later, will show an oblique pull toward the same rendezvous area. At Bletchley Park, traffic analysts, the quiet mapmakers who do not touch rotors or menus, see pattern in motion, not words. They mark the tide times, the typical replenishment arcs, the weather window in the bay. A senior officer signs an ultra packet. The packet is routed by the Special Liaison Unit to an operational headquarters in the western approaches. There is no drama in the wording. It is all nouns, times, places, and bearings, just enough for a commander to adjust a patrol line by 20 miles and catch a submarine by the throat. Night. A Royal Navy escort carrier group knifes through heavy seas. Lookouts are blind beyond a few cables. A Swordfish crew taxis on deck with radar warmed, depth charges armed. No one on that deck says ultra. They do not need to. A signal arrived, a line shifted on a chart, orders changed by inches. The aircraft lifts into spray and darkness. Back in Hut 8, a historian would be tempted to narrate the intellectual leap, but the room is not built for speeches. It is built for throughput, Polish breakthroughs before the war, the French acquisition of documents, British engineering, and the courage of boarding parties who hold key tables off 110 inches, May 1941, and from the sinking U-559 inches, October 1942. All of it has been converted into a machine schedule, a paperwork route, and a habit of mind that treats German confidence as just another variable with trace. The great point is not romance. The great point is repeatability under pressure. The section closes on two maps that do not meet. In Paris, a staff officer draws a neat vector toward a rendezvous he has ordered. In Liverpool, a liaison officer places a transparent overlay on a convoy plot and shifts a hunter line. Between them is the sea, and a cipher the Germans still rate as unbreakable. For one more night, the script will hold. By morning, someone on the German side will underline the same chilling coincidence in red pencil and decide the explanation must be anything except the obvious. February 12th, 1944. Carnival U-boat command, Lorient, Brittany. Concrete drips in the cold. The plotting room is a low hum of pencils and boots. A chorus of cautious voices under the weight of the bunker roof. A signals lieutenant from B. Dienst steps in with a folder clasped to his chest. He is not dramatic. He is exact. He circles two convoy attacks on yesterday's chart with a red pencil and draws a third circle over a rendezvous that never happened. He does not say the forbidden thought out loud. He says the professional words first. HF, DF convergence, radar surprise, air gap closing. Then the words that follow him into sleep. Coincidence. Again. Across the channel, Western Approaches Command at Derby House, Liverpool, is also concrete and maps, but the mood is procedural. Admiral Sir Max Horton's staff work a tempo that has no single hero at its center. Special Liaison Unit couriers bring an ultra pouch. The cover sheet is dry. 5 lines, all nouns and numbers. The staff officer responsible for routing does not admire the source. He obeys it. A line on the patrol screen moves 5 miles. An escort group receives a new datum. Somewhere out at sea, sailors who have never heard the word ultra will spend 4 more hours at action stations tonight because of a sentence typed in Hut 8 this morning. The Enigma premise still holds in German minds because the machine itself has not failed them in lab conditions. The Naval Service hardened procedure after 1942. 4-rotor M4 on ocean nets. Rigid short signal books. Rigor in indicator discipline. Plugboard changes. They have lectured captains. They have punished slips. They have issued new tables. When convoys bend like reeds away from their wolf packs, senior officers name other culprits. They blame undisciplined radio use by boat captains hungry for tonnage claims. They blame Allied radar that sees through rain. They blame improved HF, DF, that turns a careless transmission into a bearing line. They even blame luck. They do not blame the machine. In Bletchley Park, the habit is the opposite. No myth survives contact with throughput. Polish mathematicians broke the logic doors before the war. British engineers built bombs to turn human hypothesis into mechanical speed. Key captures from U-110 inches May 1941 and U-559 inches October 1942 did not produce a single triumphant day. They produced continuity. That continuity allows Hut 8 to lean on traffic analysis when cribs are scarce, to use weather and procedure as handles, and to feed operational headquarters in time for a destroyer to be in the right valley of ocean by dusk. The work strips the magic out of magic. It turns German certainty into a variable with trace. Even so, the Allied side also lives by discipline. Ultra is not shouted. It is fenced. The special liaison units carry only what a commander must know. If a sighting can be attributed to radar or a patrol routine, the staff will choose that cover story every time. Pilots, captains, and signalmen act on orders that look ordinary. This secrecy is not theater. It is armor. If the enemy cannot point to a single moment when a decrypt exposed him, he will keep blaming the weather. Back at Carnival, the signals lieutenant sits with a staff Kapitänleutnant under a dim lamp. They review the Kommandantenhandbuch admonitions line by line. No repeated phrases, no long signals when shadowing. Use the short signal code for contact reports. Change call signs per table. They both know the doctrine. They both know the captains. They draft another circular that tightens a screw already stripped by use. On the margin of the draft, the lieutenant writes a private note in pencil. Rendezvous shifted by enemy twice in 1 week. He erases it. He writes instead, HF, DF risk increased. Emphasize minimum keying time. Out at sea, the routine becomes a moving trap. An escort carrier makes wind. A swordfish lifts. A radar operator calls faint returns. On a sloop, a Hedgehog team rehearses drill by numbers. The ocean does not care why the group turned left at noon. The ocean cares about bearings, depth, and timing. When the contact comes, it comes as a feather on a screen, then a smell in the air, then a shape like a whale backbone. Men move because an order moved them. The order moved because a decrypt gave time and place a name. Aboard a U-boat under gray water, a radioman logs the last signal and locks the book. The captain believes his enemy's eyes are in the sky, not inside his cipher. He changes course by doctrine, not fear. He trusts a rendezvous point that only exists inside a safe. The boat slides toward a coordinate that was on a British chart 8 hours ago. There is no villain here. There is a script. The captain is following it. Bletchley Park does not watch the kill. Hut 8 watches throughput. Another menu is written. Another bomb is started. Another intercept is tried on a new setting. In Hut 6, a similar rhythm works the Luftwaffe and Army nets, feeding night fighter controllers and bomber routes. The point is not a single victory. The point is consistency. The system's strength is not a genius at a desk. It is 1,000 routine acts done on time. Near midnight in Carnival, a staff officer brings news of a lost contact and a captain overdue at his rendezvous. 2 explanations are offered. The first is that the enemy had radar and a good bearing. The second is that the enemy knew the rendezvous. The room accepts the first. The lieutenant says nothing. He looks at the red circles drying on the chart and waits for morning. May 9th, 1941. North Atlantic, south of Iceland. Sea state rough, visibility broken by sleet. Convoy OB 318 is under attack when HMS Bulldog and HMS Broadway force U-110 to the surface with depth charges. The submarine broaches, white water foaming around the conning tower. Kapitän Lieutenant Fritz Julius Lemp orders abandon ship. A boarding party from Bulldog pulls alongside in a jolt of iron and spray. Men jump across with lines and axes. The inside smell is battery acid and oil. On the radio table, an Enigma machine, plugboard leads, and books that should have gone over the side. A sailor shouts that the bilge is rising. Another passes out a canvas bag heavy with signal tables. The clock is noise and cold. Then, the boarding officer calls time and the men scramble back. U-110 slides under, stern first, taking its secrets minus a few that now ride in a Royal Navy boat. The bag is not magic. It is continuity. In London, the Admiralty and Bletchley Park process the take. Kurtz signal heft short signal code, weather tables, call sign lists, and operating instructions. In Hut 8, Alan Turing, Hugh Alexander, and their team apply the windfall like a mechanic fits new parts to an engine already running. The bombs accelerate because menus get better. Cribs sharpen because procedure is confirmed. Traffic analysts in Naval Section learn the tempo of refueling, the way a captain phrases a contact report, the safe hours for a rendezvous. The point is not a trophy on a shelf. The point is a better first guess at dawn. October 30th, 1942. Eastern Mediterranean, off Port Said. Night. HMS Petard hunts a contact with depth charges until a U-boat breaks surface, crew tumbling out. The submarine is U-559. She will not live long. A small boat from Petard closes the dying hull. Lieutenant Tony Fasson and able seaman Colin Grazier climb aboard with canteen assistant Tommy Brown. Inside, the water is up to their waists. They wrench open drawers, tear at covers, grab what looks like code material. Brown runs it back to the boat. Back again. Paper swells and tears. More books come free. Then the sea takes the U-boat. Fasson and Grazier go with her. Brown lives, soaked, shaking, hugging 2 soaked volumes. One is a weather short signal book. Another is a key sheet. On shore, men will sign for them with dry pens and straight faces. The result is not a single breakthrough day. It is a removal of excuses. Naval Enigma moved to the four-rotor M4 on ocean nets in early 1942. That change, paired with improved discipline, starved Hut 8 for months. The U-559 books reopen a path. They do not hand out plain text like a printer. They allow the bombs to be set smarter, the menus to be drawn tighter, and the traffic analysts to match behavior to meaning. In the winter that follows, shark keys that had been stone start to give in time to matter. At Western approaches, orders to shift a line have more confidence behind them. At Carnival, red circles on charts multiply with no traitor to arrest. July 1939. Pyry, near Warsaw, a wooden table in a forest clearing. Polish mathematicians Marian Rejewski, Henryk Zygalski, and Jerzy Rosiecki share what they have built: methods to break the machine logic, Zygalski sheets that attack indicators, and blueprint knowledge that allows replicas of commercial and military Enigma to be made. French and British officers take notes, measurements, and promises. 2 months later, Poland will be invaded. In Bletchley Park, the Pyry gift is the primer. Without it, the British would still have tried. With it, they start on page 10 instead of page 1. Autumn 1940 to 1943. The British side industrializes thought. Gordon Welchman adds the diagonal board to the bomb design, exploding the speed of elimination. Outstations at places like Stanmore and Eastcote fill with racks of bombs, drums spinning, relays chattering. Runners carry menus from huts 6 and 8 to the machines. Engineers nurse power and contacts. When a machine halts, a slip is torn and sent back. In Hut 6, Luftwaffe and Army nets are read often enough to help bomber routes and ground operations. In Hut 8, naval nets are read often enough to change convoy doctrine from pure defense to an intelligence-led hunt. No speech marks this transition, only a series of calm signals and moved lines. These captures have an afterlife measured in procedures. The Kurz-signal heft, taken from U-110, and the Wetter Kurzschlüssel and other sheets taken from U-559 do not sit in frames. They become training notes for new analysts, examples for traffic classrooms, and baselines for the next time a cipher clerk in a U-boat is tired, wet, and human. When later key lists are changed, the memory of the earlier books still helps. Analysts know what likely words look like in German naval usage, where a captain tends to put his bearing, how few characters a fuel state can compress to. 1,000 small expectations become a dozen useful cribs. The bombs do not think. They filter hypotheses. Better hypotheses mean faster halts. Faster halts mean signals that leave Hut 8, while a destroyer can still turn. The German script adjusts but does not rewrite itself. The Nachrichtendienst issues bulletins. Captains are warned again about long transmissions. Short signal brevity is praised. The four-rotor system is treated as sufficient protection. In tests, it is. In war, against an industrialized mind and a confluence of Polish theory, British engineering, and Royal Navy boarding courage, it is not sufficient everywhere, every day. The difference is not romance. It is a margin of hours, captured by men who risked drowning for wet paper and by clerks who filed those papers where they would change shift patterns and machine schedules. Return to February 1944. Carnival red pencils. Derby House overlays. Hut 8 menus. The chain that began at Pyry, crossed the North Atlantic on a canvas bag, and surfaced in the Mediterranean under a drowning light, is now a quiet habit. That habit is why a hunter line moves tonight. That habit is why a captain does not make his rendezvous at dawn. February 13th, 1944. Western approaches command. Liverpool. Night shift. The plotting room is lit by hooded lamps and the low glow of grease pencil tracks on perspex. A special liaison unit courier lays a thin ultra pouch on the duty officer's desk. The summary is spare. One 5-figure coordinate derived from Hut 8 settings just cleared. One-time group. One terse note on probable course and speed for a U-boat, heading to a replenishment zone off the Bay of Biscay. There is nothing theatrical in the language. There is a bearing, a speed, and an instruction that shifts a hunter line by a few miles. The order moves. So do ships. Out at sea, 2nd Escort Group under Captain Frederick John Walker drives fast into bad water. HMS Starling takes green seas over the bow. HMS Wild Goose and HMS Woodpecker hold station in the dark, lookouts peering under slickers, ASDIC operators listening for the thin metallic echo of a steel tube under the swell. The signal that nudged them here does not say ultra. It arrived through ordinary channels and sounded like routine. The men on the bridge treat it that way. They trim course by 1.5 degrees. The carrier-borne Swordfish, farther west, warms radar equipment in an open hangar. The winch sings. You feel the system breathe. Hours later, the contact comes as a smear on a radar set in a Swordfish cockpit, a small echo, not quite the sea itself. The pilot calls it. The observer checks range. The pilot throttles back, circles, marks the point with a flare. On the surface, there is nothing but black water. Below, a boat changes depth and hopes the ocean will absorb the sound. The Swordfish crew drops depth charges on the mark and climbs back into cloud. On a sloop, a Hedgehog team runs the drill like a catechism. Safety pins, firing panel, pattern set, standby, bearing steady, fire. The bombs leave the rails in a clean, rising arc. Second stretch. Then dull thuds underfoot, not quite sound, more like a hand knocking at the ship's spine. The sea boils, oil smears to leeward. The captain does not claim a victory speech. He orders another search pattern. In Carnival, the red circles multiply. The staff officer writes the daily appreciation with professional detachment. Weather remains unfavorable. HF, DF methods are improving among the enemy. Air patrols close the air gap. U-boats must minimize keying time and avoid long transmissions under all circumstances. He does not write the line he wants to write. He does not accuse the machine. He notes, instead, that 2 rendezvous points were compromised by unknown means, and that a short signal contact report appears to have produced radar contact by the enemy within hours. The conclusion is polite. The conclusion is wrong because the premise remains sacred. Bletchley Park does not mark sinkings with chalk on a wall. Hut 8 marks throughput. Men and women in Hut 8 and at the outstations feed the bombs with menus written from cribs derived from procedure and weather. A wren leans into the noise of a bomb rack at Eastcote, eyes on a pilot lamp that halts when a set of rotor positions and plugboard pairs survive elimination. The halt comes. She pulls the slip, hands it off. Somewhere else, a Typex chatters out German into sense. A naval contact report becomes a dot on a British chart, then a vector, then an order in plain English. The human perspective is not a single hero. It is a chain that remains intact under pressure. The copier who makes the menu legible, the driver who keeps the outstation warm, the duty officer who refuses to gild the signal with commentary. Air War absorbs Ultra too. Last summer's strike on Peenemünde, August 17th to 18th, 1943, owed part of its timing to decrypts that tied scientists, weather, and movement to a window when Bomber Command could hurt the target and escape the worst of night fighter concentration. In late 1943 and early 1944, Hut 6 reads enough Luftwaffe signals to let controllers adjust bomber routes and radar countermeasures. It is never total. It is never perfect. It is often enough for a raid to step a few miles left and miss a box of night fighters. It is often enough for a Pathfinder leader to know that a beacon will be jammed at a predicted minute. Nothing in the wording shouts triumph. The forms read like they always do. Takeoff times, waypoints, loads. The German script, held together by doctrine and faith in mathematics, keeps trying to explain around the obvious. Bedienst officers at Carnival and Paris audit their own traffic for illegal phrases and padding. They inspect indicator logs. They remind boats to use the Kurtz signal heft and to compress contact reports into the shortest burst possible. They change call signs by table. They inspect a captain's signal book for saltwater damage and mark him down if it is not sealed. Each reform is rational. Each reform is insufficient against an opponent who does not attack one piece, but the whole procedure, physics, and time. On the Western approaches plotting table, grease pencil arcs meet the Bay of Biscay approaches like ribs. A liaison officer from the RAF stands near the Navy watchkeeper and trades bearings from coastal radar and Y-station logs. The language is mixed, but compatible. Bearings, times, positions, not hopes. An ultrasheet arrives and is folded under other sources, so that the paper trail never points to a single shining key. A staff captain gives a new datum to a destroyer group as if it were simply another DF cross. If anyone asks later, radar found it. If anyone asks later, a patrol got lucky between squalls. The lie is not malice. It is the price of keeping the door open one more week. Close again on a single boat, alone in cold water. The captain stands at the periscope for one last sweep before coming to periscope depth for air. He is a professional. He is not careless. He trusts a net discipline drilled into him from keel. He believes the rendezvous exists inside his safe and nowhere else. He does not know. A wren watched a lamp halt 2 hours ago. He does not know a clerk in Liverpool moved a line by a pencil width. He sees nothing and orders the dive maintained. The boat slides on. The section ends with 2 hands. One gloved hand on a plotting board in Liverpool, moving a clear overlay by inches. One bare hand on cold steel in a U-boat, turning a wheel by the book. The ocean joins them. The cipher binds them. The German hand follows a script. The British hand follows a schedule. The meeting point will be decided by minutes, captured in a hut that smells of damp wool and hot relays. February 20th, 1944. Bletchley Park, Buckinghamshire. The night has the iron taste of frost. Inside Hut 6, Luftwaffe traffic spills from teleprinters in 5-letter groups, each line another sheet to be tamed. A controller from Bomber Command stands with a liaison officer in a cramped corner as a duty cryptanalyst tests settings just cleared by a bomb outstation. The lamp halts. A slip moves. German night fighter orders unwrap into place names and altitudes, timings and vector plans for the defense against a raid that the RAF has not yet launched. Ultra does not choose targets. It changes timing. It turns a route 2 fingers north. It calls for an extra window drop to blind a Freya belt at a particular minute over Belgium. Big week begins this night, February 20th to 25th, with factories in the German aircraft industry on the RAF and USAAF lists. The bombers will go whether Ultra speaks or not. Ultra lets them arrive with fewer ambushes waiting. The rhythm that keeps U-boats off a rendezvous now runs through air as well. JAG Division headquarters complain, in Enigma clear meaning if not tone, that their boxes were out of place by miles when a bomber stream slid where it should not have fit. Night fighter controllers gripe about radar jamming that peaked exactly when their handover tables were tight. Hut 6 reads the aftermath as calmly as it read the before. The reports, turned into English and stripped to nouns and numbers, cross a desk at High Wycombe and vanish into route cards that a pilot will glance at under a red lamp. March 1944. London to Kent to the East Coast. The other war, the false one, grows muscle. Wireless trucks of the British XXX Corps and Corps-level signals from the United States First Army Group work a fake life for formations that do not yet exist where they are said to be. Fortitude South needs the enemy to believe in a blow at Pas-de-Calais, not Normandy. It breathes through controlled agents and dummy camps and radio traffic that sounds like a field army turning wrenches and filing returns. Bletchley Park's role is not to whisper orders to deception officers. Its role is to read back the enemy's pulse. Hut 3 and Hut 6 strip OB West and Luftwaffe reports, noting which phantom divisions are being treated as real and which invented depots are getting reconnaissance. The feedback loop is tight and cold. Transmit lies, read truth, adjust lies. April 3rd, 1944. Carnival remains a bunker of red pencils, but Paris and Saint-Germain-en-Laye carry the larger plot for the coast of France. In Enigma, 15th Army headquarters in the Pas-de-Calais sector orders routine inspections and rehearsals. The orders have the clean stamp of belief. They treat the Calais sector as a magnet. They assign engineers and anti-invasion obstacles on a schedule that assumes the heavy blow will land there. Ultra packets carrying these reads arrive at Allied headquarters with the same dry cover sheets as naval contact reports. The deception staff do not cheer. They adjust a radio net's chatter pattern to confirm the bias. They fill a phantom depot with another week of noise. Late April becomes early May. Bomber Command balances, strikes, and losses with Ultra's quiet metronome. Fighter Command waits for signals that say the Jagdwaffe has been drawn in by the last shuttle. Naval Section watches Bay of Biscay, refueling arcs as U-boats try to maintain a screen against an invasion whose hour is unknown. In Bletchley Park, the huts are separate and the hours are continuous. One watch leaves, another arrives. The through line is simple. The German machine remains the German premise. It is secure. Therefore, coincidences must be blamed on something else. The British system remains the British premise. The enemy believes, therefore traffic has pattern, therefore bombs, ships, and deception can live inside the enemy's blind membrane. A human perspective sharpens this without romance. South of London, a signals sergeant in a lorry wakes at 0200 and starts a schedule of wireless checks for the ghost of an armored division. His voice is nothing special. His Morse is average. He hits his timings. In Paris, a German staff captain signs a set of orders about movement restrictions tied to perceived Allied buildups opposite Calais and Boulogne. He writes in ink on a form he has filled 100 times. In Bletchley Park, a WREN at an outstation leans to watch a bomb lamp halt, tears the slip, and passes it to a driver who clears snow from a step with her shoe before she runs. None of them say the word fortitude. None of them say ultra. All three are parts of a single geometry that decides where concrete and men will be on a morning that matters. May 9th, 1944. Luftflotte 3 traffic shows an increased readiness drill for fighter units north of the Seine. The decrypt presents it without adjectives. The map at Allied Expeditionary Air Force Headquarters grows another pin in the area that deception wants heavy. A week later, OB West answers Berlin with a confident appreciation. The Pas-de-Calais sector remains the primary threat. The words are the words a deceiver wants to read. They arrive because wireless trucks chattered, and decoy tanks sat in fields, and because controlled agents wrote what they were told to write. They also arrive because Hut 6 kept taking the enemy's pulse and handing it to planners before the ink dried. The Allied side is procedure. The German side is a script that does not admit that the story can be rewritten from outside the theater. June 1st approaches. Naval traffic tightens in the Channel. Allied meteorology squeezes windows, and commanders argue hours. In the huts, the lamps do not know that a hinge is near. They only know that schedules must be met and settings must be found before dawn. The last week of May produces one more confirmation in German Enigma. 15th Army continues to treat Calais as the crown of the shield. The implication is not shouted in any room. It is underlined in pencil and handed across a desk. End the section in a small room, Hut 6 night watch, a clock ticking over to June. A duty officer initials a decrypt that notes a ready state in the wrong place for the enemy and the right place for the plan. He drops the sheet into a pouch without ceremony. Outside, owls call over hedges. Inside, the chain keeps time. June 6th, 1944. Saint-Germain-en-Laye, OB West Headquarters, outside Paris. Dawn gray, rain in the trees. Teleprinters chatter behind blackout curtains as staff officers crowd around a situation map that keeps sprouting pins along the Cotentin and Calvados coast. Reports arrive jagged. Airborne drops in depth. Coastal batteries calling counter-battery fire. Divisional phones that ring once, then go dead. A signals officer from 15th Army brings a folder marked with last night's readiness orders north of the Seine. The tone is calm. The subtext, in every room, is not. If the main blow is Normandy, why did the enemy let you believe for weeks that Pas-de-Calais was the anvil? If Calais is still the anvil, why are tanks burning at Coursulas and Sainte-Mère-Église before breakfast? At Bletchley Park, the night watch hands over without ceremony. Hut 6 pulls Luftwaffe ground-to-air and sector reports. Hut 8 drags at naval traffic from the Channel approaches and Bay of Biscay. The lamp halts, slips move, Typex clatters. Decrypts do not say victory. They say units, timings, bridges, fuel, and where a German staff thinks a reserve should be by 1400. A special liaison unit pouch moves to Allied Expeditionary Air Force and to naval commanders running the beachhead screen. The orders that follow look ordinary. A fighter route angled 5 miles. A patrol line stiffened off Omaha by a corvette that was headed elsewhere. A destroyer ordered to nose down a bearing line that reads like radar luck if anyone asks later. Morning on the beaches confuses all doctrine. German batteries that survive the first hours send Enigma short requests for ammunition and counterattack timings. Hut 6 reads enough of the flow to let controllers change bomber streams and jamming profiles over the Seine corridor. Naval section sees S-boat flotillas staging to cut the supply lanes. A liaison officer runs the ultra sheet across a room. A staff captain folds it under coastal radar plots so the file cannot be traced to one source. An order goes to a destroyer division. Adjust the barrier. Expect S-boats on this line after dark. The sentence is dry. The effect is a boat's wake, moving across black water hours later. In Saint-Germain-en-Laye, the German script does not break cleanly. It bends, creaks, protests. OB West demands clarity from 7th Army on the Normandy front, and reassurance from 15th Army that the northern sector remains the Schwerpunkt if another landing comes. In Carnival, naval staff mark U-boat deployment tracks to the channel and list the obvious hazards: Allied air, radar, mines, escorts. A signals lieutenant writes the daily security admonition again. Minimum keying time. Obey short signal tables. No padding. No forbidden words. He files it. Then he underlines in red a coincidence no one wants to name. Allied destroyers have a habit of being where rendezvous points lie. He writes HF, DF in the margin and closes the folder. Sea and Sky enforce the British schedule. West of the Seine Bay, an escort carrier group cycles Avengers and Swordfish above the shipping lanes. The pilots read ordinary route cards. They do not read the ultra phrases that shape those cards. They fly bearings, altitudes, and times that put them over a channel where S-boats will, by habit and table, choose to run. In the black, a radar operator catches a sliver. Flares fall. A destroyer turns hard and throws white water. Guns talk. The report will say, radar contact, brief chase, target engaged, probable damage. It is not wrong. It is not the whole. On land, the deception that starved German reserves of freedom continues its quiet loop. Wireless trucks in Kent keep the ghost army talking. Controlled agents transmit confirmations of phantom depots and traffic jams up near Calais. Hut 3 and Hut 6 read the enemy's honest reactions. 15th Army holds. The belief that Calais is the true target persists through the first 48 hours and becomes a doctrine of caution that pins formations which cannot be spared. No one at Bletchley writes the word victory on a chalkboard. Someone initials a decrypt that says, another ready state check has been ordered in the wrong place. Another pouch leaves. The German mind in this week is not blind, it is bounded. B-Dienst officers audit their own radio nets and find procedural faults they can fix. They shorten transmissions, they rotate call signs. They tighten everything that can be tightened inside the premise that the cipher is sound. In tests, the premise holds. In war, Ultra keeps stealing hours. A bridge is attacked an hour earlier because a staff read a movement order. A night fighter line stands on the wrong ridge because a controller's table was in British hands before dusk. Each event can be explained as luck, radar, reconnaissance. The pattern looks like a string of coincidences separated by minutes. The minutes were minted in huts that smell of hot relays. A human scene brings the abstraction down to a room. Late on June 7th in Hut 6, a WAAF operator clears carbon dust from a Typex and feeds another strip. The decrypt prints with the same indifference as yesterday. Regiment names, place names, fuel states, bridge classification numbers. She tears the strip and passes it forward. A driver takes the pouch, checks her watch, and runs. There is no speech about turning points. There is a schedule. In Saint-Germain-en-Laye, a staff officer rubs his eyes and signs one more order that keeps armored formations north of the Seine in case the blow at Calais still comes. He is a professional. He follows the script. Outside, June rain lifts. Close on a red pencil over a channel chart, a German signals lieutenant circles another failed rendezvous and does not write the thought that wakes him at night. Close on a grease pencil in a plotting room at sea, moving a destroyer line by inches because a sentence on a gray sheet said to move it. Between the two pencils is a cipher the Germans still trust and a process that the British refuse to dramatize. The trust meets the process in the surf. May 23rd, 1944. Carnival, Lorient. The red pencils have become a habit. The signals lieutenant drafts another bulletin. Minimize keying time. Use short signal tables. Avoid routine openings. Change call signs on schedule. His superior initials it. The paper says, control. The charts behind them say coincidence that will not stop. Losses in the Biscay approaches. rendezvous broken up, S-boat sorties blunted. The staff argue radar, HF, DF, and air supremacy. They do not write the forbidden line. They do not accuse the cipher. Summer turns to autumn. September 1944. Paris has fallen. Obi West has retreated east. 15th Army still guards the Pas-de-Calais myth long after the beaches are decided. In a small office, a obedient analyst assembles a private memo citing instances where Allied action matched Enigma content within hours. He does not allege a full break. He suggests leakage through aerial reconnaissance patterns, prisoner talk, and the enemy's sure command of direction finding. The memo is filed. It does not change doctrine. The machine remains the premise. In tests, nothing leaks. In war, time leaks. January 1945. Flensburg, northern Germany. Headquarters in exile. Admiral Karl Döenitz's staff lives inside maps with too few U-boats to move the pins. In the radio office, procedure is still perfect. 4-rotor M4 on the ocean nets. Kurd signal heft in use. Keys handled by table and safe. Boats that survive report contact only in bursts measured by the second. The premise holds. If we obey the book will protect us. The evidence does not hold. Allied destroyers appear too often where secret points lie. Aircraft climb out of weather at the hinge of a rendezvous window. Convoys bend away before a wolf pack can form. The gap between premise and sea widens. No one writes the bridge that spans it. Inside Bletchley Park, shutdown begins in slow motion. January to April, 1945. As the Western Front bursts the Rhine line and the U-boat arm collapses, huts 6 and 8 keep hours. The bombs keep spinning. The Typex keeps clacking. Ultra packets keep crossing desks. The tone does not change. Nouns, times, units. Naval section watches the last sorties. Hut 6 reads the Luftwaffe's exhaustion in numbers, not adjectives. Traffic analysis, the old backbone, stays honest when keys are late. The war draws a hard line across the story. The procedure does not. May 1945. The surrender. TICOM teams, Allied technical intelligence on communications, fan out across Germany. They comb OKW, chi rooms, and Bedienst files, question officers in gray offices that smell of dust. In Flensburg, they interview men who spent years trusting the machine. They ask the forbidden questions. Did you suspect a compromise of Enigma? The answers are cautious. We suspected HF, DF. We suspected radar. We suspected traitors. We did not suspect the machine in time to act. A few signal officers admit, in private tone, that coincidences pressed hard against belief after 1943. No one produces a document that names the break in plain words. Faith in mathematics is not surrendered easily. It persists even when the charts argue otherwise. One floor down, a German cryptanalyst explains his own war to a British visitor. He taps the M4 rotor stack, walks through indicator discipline, praises the short signal code. He is not lying. The design is good. The procedures are strong when followed. He never saw, because he could not see inside the other side, how Polish foundations, British engineering, captured keys from U-110 inches, May 1941, and U-559 inches, October 1942, and traffic analysis closed the timing gap. He did not see bombs at Eastcote halting on menus written from weather and habit. He did not see special liaison units fencing ultra so that no captain in the field could give the game away by rumor. He did not see the chain because secrecy worked. Postwar, the admissions come in fragments. In Nuremberg corridors, word reaches Dönitz that the Allies read Enigma during the war. His reaction is recorded as shock that borders on disbelief. In signals histories drafted under guard, staff officers concede that Allied HF, DF, and air patrols, married to radar, were lethal. They do not write the full sentence that would break the old premise. Years later, when books finally appear, the word ultra will carry the public weight. In the rooms that mattered, during the hours that mattered, it never did. The weight belonged to schedules met in cold weather, and to men and women who learned that the enemy's faith could be turned into a variable with trace. Return once more to a human room. Hut 8. Last watch before dispersal. Spring rain taps the windows. A wren shuts down a bomber bank and writes a final line in a log. A duty officer initials one more naval decrypt out of habit, then places it in a pouch that will not go anywhere because the sea is quiet. Across the empty field, Hut 6 stacks files for removal to locked store. No speeches, no music. The system that ran on rhythm and refusal to dramatize ends the way it lived, with throughput. And in a German bunker that is now a museum, a glass case holds an Enigma with a neat card that explains rotors and plugboard. Visitors turn the wheels and feel the clicks. The premise still feels strong to the hand. The story on the wall tells another thing, that certainty is a script that can carry a force to the edge of defeat without a single villain to blame. The clicks do not sound different. You know now what sat behind them. A habit of mind in huts and outstations, a handful of wet books hauled out of dark water, 1,000 routine acts done on time. Not magic, not a duel. A schedule that outlived the myth.